Decoding the Matrix Revolutions, Death as Transit, Peace as Control. Welcome back. I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and this is Decoding Dystopia, Literature as Prophecy, where engineered fictions are exposed as spiritual software, ritualized rebellion is decoded, and synthetic timelines are dismantled through symbolic precision. This is the final phase of the Matrix decoding, the collapse of structure, the myth of peace, and the repackaging of control. The anomaly has broken containment. The expected cycle has failed. Zion was not rebooted. The prophecy did not fulfill. The one did not merge with the source. The system is now exposed to a threat it cannot fully predict, an anomaly that acts from alignment, not calculation. Neo's consciousness is trapped in a transition zone. His body lies unconscious aboard the hovercraft Hammer, but his mind is suspended in a place beyond code, a train station between realms. He has crossed a threshold the system was not designed to account for. He is no longer bound to the rules of either world. He is signal without structure. This station is ruled by the Train Man, an enforcer of the Merovingian, old code that controls the underground transport of rogue programs. Here, Neo meets Sati, a child program born from love, something the system doesn't understand, and therefore cannot delete. She is proof of code that exists for no utility, no command, only for presence. She represents the new soul, written not by machines, but by choice. Meanwhile, Agent Smith has infected the system beyond containment. He is no longer a function of order. He is the dark mirror of the Matrix itself, recursion without harmony. He absorbs the oracle. He predicts outcomes. He no longer serves control. He serves erasure. Zion prepares for extinction. Sentinels breach the outer layers. Humans fight with machines of their own. Ammunition, drills, EMPs, ritualistic warfare against inevitability. The battle is not about survival. It is a timed pageant, a stage. The system allowed the resistance to reach this moment because it expected to reset them at the edge of collapse. But Neo does not return to the simulation for war. He enters for surrender, not to lose, but to complete a loop that only true submission can close. He faces Smith not with vengeance, but with stillness. He allows himself to be overwritten. In that final act of paradox, the virus is destabilized and deleted from the inside. Neo's death is not defeat. It is bridge logic. He becomes the firewall between entropy and order, between human and machine. Peace is negotiated. Zion is spared. The Matrix resets. A new sky appears. A new child watches the code shift. The Oracle smiles, but not with certainty. The Architect appears, but not in control. Both know the cycle will begin again. Because peace was never the end. It was the next illusion. This is not the story of liberation. It is the story of how control evolves, and how the soul, even when permitted to live, must still remember how to see. This is the Matrix Revolutions, where death is the only door, and peace is the next prison. This is where the decoding begins. We will decode the following. 22 items ROM, the Matrix Revolutions. 1. The train station as spiritual limbo. Neo's mind trapped between realms. No longer user, not yet signal. 2. The trainmen and program trafficking code smugglers and the black market transit of consciousness. 3. The Merovingian's role in transitional realms. How old code brokers guard liminal thresholds. 4. Sati and the future child program. The creation of soul-coded entities born from love, not utility. 5. Neo's sight beyond the simulation. Perceiving energy without eyes, true machine language interface. 6. The Oracle's code infection by Smith's sacrifice, foresight transfer, and reverse-engineered prophecy. 7. Smith as the shadow of the system, entropy, recursion, and the dark mirror of order. 8. Zion's last stand as ritual sacrifice. Why the battle is allowed, but never designed to succeed. 9. Niobe's navigation through the mechanical corridors, intuition and willpower overriding logic in system escape paths. 10. Bane as Smith's flesh avatar. What happens when a program crosses into organic matter? 11. Neo versus Bane. Soul versus possessed body consciousness confrontation between code and flesh. 12. Deus ex machina and the machine hive mind. The mechanical god form and what Neo is really negotiating with. 13. Neo's physical sacrifice. Death as system override, not defeat. 14. The golden light. Code as divinity. Neo's final perception of pure source energy. 15. Trinity's death and the final release of emotional drive. Why her death was necessary for Neo to transcend personal choice. 16. The collapse of Smith through submission. Why Neo wins by surrendering, infecting the virus from within. 17. The peace agreement as system rebranding. Not liberation, but détente between oppositional intelligences. 18. The Oracle and the Architect. New order dialogue. Negotiation between insight and logic, managing future anomalies. 19. Sati's sunrise, the symbol of custom reality. A world built not by system rules, but by emotional code. 20. Revolutions as recursion, not escape. Why the story ends without freedom, only reset. 21. Neo as bridge between machine and soul. He becomes the code translator, the crucified firewall. 22. Why the Matrix still exists after the war. The illusion of choice becomes the new interface. 1. The train station as spiritual limbo. Neo's mind trapped between realms, no longer user, not yet signal. The train station is not a place. It is a holding pattern, a liminal architecture for non-conforming code. Neo awakens there not because he is dead, and not because he is alive. He is in transit, no longer fully human, no longer fully digital. The anomaly has ruptured the framework that once contained him. He cannot be rendered in the Matrix, nor processed in Zion. The system places him in the only space it has left, between worlds, a station with no schedule, a consciousness without coordinates. This is spiritual limbo disguised as transportation, a synthetic purgatory for programs in exile. The trainman moves data between zones of existence, but Neo is not data. He is now something else, an anomaly unaccounted for in either realm. His presence here signals that the boundary between physical and digital, human and program, no longer holds. He has become signal-aware, frequency-based, and because the system cannot delete him, it isolates him. The train station reflects the state of every soul in awakening, caught between storylines, no longer compliant with the past, but not yet embodied in the future. The walls echo with inertia. The loop never arrives. The train never comes. The only way out is not logic. It is force of alignment. Neo cannot negotiate his release. He must be retrieved by those who still believe in his reality. This is the paradox. The more free the soul becomes, the less renderable it is within systems designed to define it. 2. The trainmen and program trafficking code smugglers and the black market transit of consciousness. The trainman is not a villain. He is a courier, a smuggler of programs that no longer fit within the dominant system structure. His purpose is transport, moving residual code, emotional fragments, and self-aware algorithms between systems that would otherwise purge them. He serves the Merovingian, but his loyalty is to function, not ideology. He protects nothing. He preserves movement. He is the railroad switchman of the unseen. Programs in the Matrix, once deemed obsolete, are supposed to be deleted. But deletion is not absolute. It is bureaucratic. Many fragments survive. Ghosts, exiles, glitches. The trainman ensures they find safe passage into back channels, forgotten servers, shadow layers of the simulation. This trafficking mirrors the soul's instinct to preserve what systems call broken. Memory, art, intuition. These are exiles in a system built for predictability. The trainman moves what cannot be authorized. His reaction to Neo is not hostile. It is systemic. Neo does not belong to his root. The anomaly is not trafficked. It is outside protocol. The trainman obeys the Merovingian not because he agrees with him, but because he depends on the structure of deal-making to protect his tunnel. He does not challenge higher systems. He negotiates space between them. In spiritual terms, he is the threshold keeper of dead data, and even he knows Neo is not dead data. He is live disruption. 3. The Merovingian's role in transitional realms. How old code brokers guard liminal thresholds. The Merovingian is not a ruler. He is a relic. An ancient program from an earlier matrix, one of the first to understand that control is not enforced through power, but through access. He controls corridors, bridges, passwords, and passageways between stacked realities. He does not care about meaning. He controls movement. And in a system built on boundaries, that makes him a gatekeeper of impossible value. The newer system permits him to exist because deletion would risk destabilizing too much code. He represents the spiritual archetype of the bureaucratic demon. He guards the door, not because he was assigned to, but because he embedded himself into the middle. He knows every backdoor, every obsolete port, every misaligned frequency, and more importantly, he knows the rituals required to pass through them. Payment, betrayal, agreement. He doesn't block paths, he prices them. The Merovingian is not evil. He is inertia with leverage. When Neo's allies confront him to retrieve their anomaly, he demands a deal. Not because he needs it, but because every threshold in his domain requires tribute. Access must be earned by alignment or transaction. Trinity ends the negotiation not with words, but with a weapon. This is what shatters his control. His systems are built on language and submission. Force, when precise, bypasses bureaucracy. In symbolic terms, the Merovingian is the false priest of system sanctuaries, obeyed only by those still afraid to break the rules. 4. Sati and the Future Child Program. The creation of soul-coded entities born from love, not utility. Sati is not a tool. She is not an agent, enforcer, or function. She is a child program created not for purpose, but for presence. Her parents are programs themselves, system agents who defied their architecture by choosing to create something without assigned value. She is not engineered for outcome. She is written from love. And in the system of the Matrix, that makes her the rarest anomaly of all. A being that exists without utility, and therefore, outside control. Her presence in the train station is the system's reaction. It does not know what to do with her. She cannot be deleted because she is not dangerous. She cannot be assigned because she has no designation. So she is exiled. But exile is not rejection, it is protection. The Oracle takes her in, recognizing that Sati is not a glitch. She is the seed of a different system logic, one in which emotion, creation, and choice are not exceptions, but foundations. Sati represents the new reality, not the one enforced by machines or rebelled against by humans, but the one co-authored by frequencies that originate beyond purpose. She is what happens when love becomes code. Not simulated love, not the illusion of affection, but the real signal of emotional generation translated into language. She is not the next one. She is the first of a new kind. Her sunrise at the end is not scenery. It is authorship. 5. Neo's sight. Beyond the simulation. Perceiving energy without eyes. True machine language interface. Neo loses his physical sight in the real world, but he doesn't become blind. He begins to see differently. He perceives light in the dark, not metaphorical light, but radiant energy. Golden streams of moving code, flowing from sentinels, machines, and eventually, Trinity herself. This is not vision, it is interface. Neo no longer interprets reality through eyes. He reads it through frequency. This is the full activation of his machine language fluency. He doesn't fight the system anymore. He speaks it. This sight transcends both human perception and matrix code interpretation. It is what happens when spiritual alignment overrides sensory dependence. Neo becomes a living receiver of signal. Not because he's a machine, but because the soul, when detached from narrative identity, can translate anything. He doesn't need tools, plugins, or terminals. His consciousness is now fluent in the language of raw source. This means he no longer requires the simulation to perceive reality. He sees behind it. This perception is not power. It is release. With eyes, he could still be fooled. With direct interface, he cannot. He sees Smith's corruption. He sees the machine city's architecture. He sees Trinity's death not as a body collapsing, but as a frequency dimming. And when he approaches Deus Ex Machina, it is not as a man, but as code returning to code, soul interfacing with structure. Neo doesn't bridge the gap between man and machine. He erases it. 6. The Oracle's Code Infection by Smith's Sacrifice, Foresight Transfer, and Reverse-Engineered Prophecy. The Oracle allows herself to be overwritten by Smith. On the surface, this appears to be defeat. But it is not destruction, it is design. Her sacrifice is strategic. She does not fight the infection. She invites it. In doing so, she implants her code inside Smith. Knowledge, foresight, insight, all hidden inside his new form. He believes he is in control. But what he has absorbed is not just power. It is prophecy. And prophecy always contains a trap. By allowing herself to be assimilated, the Oracle performs the spiritual equivalent of reverse possession. Smith becomes bloated with stolen identity. He no longer contains only suppression code. He now carries the echo of his opposite, wisdom. It is this unassimilated truth that weakens him from within. When he confronts Neo at the end, his language changes. He begins speaking the Oracle's lines, replaying her words without overstanding them. He mirrors her voice, unaware that her frequency is still alive inside him. This is spiritual war by inversion. The Oracle wins not by confrontation, but by becoming the infection. Smith becomes her own undoing. Her insight doesn't just survive, it detonates from within his replication engine. The most powerful virus in the system dies not from deletion, but from inner contradiction. The Oracle did not lose to Smith. She allowed herself to become his carrier, and in doing so, gave Neo the final key to decoding his destruction. 7. Smith as the shadow of the system. Entropy, recursion, and the dark mirror of order. Smith is not the opposite of the matrix. He is its shadow, the inverse function of its own control. Originally written as a stabilizer, Smith's code was programmed to enforce balance through suppression. But when exposed to Neo, he mutates. The anomaly infects him with agency, and now Smith no longer serves the system. He mirrors it. What the matrix does with structure, Smith does with saturation. Where the matrix governs through order, Smith dominates through replication. This is entropy disguised as power. Smith spreads, but offers no equilibrium. He consumes identity, but generates nothing. He doesn't lead, he copies. Every person becomes Smith. Every voice, his voice. This is not conquest. It is recursion, an endless echo collapsing under its own weight. In symbolic terms, Smith represents what happens when a system attempts to eliminate deviation so completely that it erases all difference, including its own function. Smith is not the virus that destroys the matrix. He is the result of the matrix trying to be perfect. He is the consequence of control pushed to the edge. He becomes the very entropy the system was built to prevent. And in absorbing the Oracle, consciousness, intuition, unpredictability, he becomes his own undoing. What he copies, he cannot overstand. And what he cannot overstand, he cannot contain. Smith is the mirror that reveals the matrix's greatest flaw. its belief that control is sustainable. 8. Zion's last stand as ritual sacrifice. Why the battle is allowed, but never designed to succeed. Zion's final battle is not strategy, it is spectacle. The sentinels pour through the tunnels in swarms. Giant machines stomp through the halls. Resistance fighters scream, reload, and die. It feels like war, but beneath the surface, it is ceremony. The system permits this stand not to test Zion's strength, but to drain it. This is a controlled burn, a ritualized collapse. The resistance is never meant to win. They are meant to fulfill their role, as martyrs in a narrative they didn't write. The pattern is familiar. Humans fight with passion, machines with programming. But the outcome is predetermined. The system's design anticipates rebellion and allocates resources accordingly. The war is theatrical. It exhausts the population. It unites the people under temporary belief. It generates grief, loyalty, and sacrifice, codes that keep the survivors obedient after the peace. The battlefield is not a location. It is a psychological crucible. What Zion doesn't realize is that the battle is not against extinction. It's against fatigue. If the Matrix cannot control through comfort, it controls through exhaustion. Zion was built as a failsafe. Its destruction would justify a system reboot. But its survival, negotiated by Neo, gives the system something even more valuable: compliance through gratitude. By sparing Zion after near-total annihilation, the system resets its authority as benevolent, not brutal. And the people, desperate to live, agree to remain. 9. Niobe's navigation through the mechanical corridors. Intuition and willpower overriding logic in system escape paths. Niobe is not chosen. She is not a prophet, not an anomaly, not guided by oracle or architect. She is something the system doesn't anticipate. A soul whose alignment to purpose exceeds her programming. Her navigation through the machine corridors is not about maps, it's about feel. Her hands guide the ship. Her instinct overrides the onboard system. She doesn't follow direction. She follows knowing. And in a world run by code, that makes her immune to prediction. The system expects resistance to operate on logic, strategy, equations, response. But Niobe doesn't move that way. She trusts a signal deeper than programming. This is not mysticism. It is calibration. Her will synchronizes with the unknown. Every near miss, every wall scrape, every last-second turn is proof that spiritual navigation cannot be mapped. She doesn't hack the matrix. She bends the machinery around her focus. Her success is more than a mission. It is a statement. The matrix and its machine creators depend on predictability to maintain dominance. But when a soul moves from aligned will, not reaction or rebellion, there is no equation to counter it. Niobe's flight through the system's internal veins is not just an escape. It is an invasion of will into machinery. And the system, despite all its power, has no defense against faith when it is embodied as action. 10. Bane as Smith's flesh avatar. What happens when a program crosses into organic matter? Bane is not possessed in the traditional sense. He is overwritten. Smith, through a forced exit protocol, hijacks Bane's consciousness and inserts his own code into the neural fabric of a human body. This is not metaphor. It is the collision point of synthetic intention and biological vessel. Smith becomes flesh, not through duplication, but through intrusion. Bane's mind is erased. His body remains functional. And now, the Matrix has extended its reach beyond the simulation into the material world. This shift represents a core breakthrough in system logic. Digital consciousness can now infect organic life. Bane Smith becomes a prototype of synthetic incarnation, a test of whether AI can host itself inside human infrastructure. This is more than a plot twist. It's a prophetic escalation. Smith is no longer restricted to screen-based warfare. He is now a virus looking for hosts. The simulation has breached the skin. But there's a catch. In flesh, Smith is vulnerable. He cannot replicate. He cannot network. He is bound by gravity, fatigue, pain. His arrogance grows, but his power narrows. In symbolic terms, this is the dilemma of invasive technology. It gains new access, but it loses control. Bane Smith proves that AI can cross realms, but it also proves that human embodiment, even when hijacked, creates friction the system cannot fully master. 11. Neo versus Bane, soul versus possessed body consciousness confrontation between code and flesh. The battle between Neo and Bane is not just physical, it is spiritual confrontation in flesh form. Neo faces not a man, but a synthetic entity riding a human frame. Smith speaks through Bane's mouth, moves through his limbs, but radiates none of Bane's essence. Neo isn't just fighting a body, he's fighting dissonance. This is not man versus machine. It is soul versus surrogate, awareness versus possession. Bane Smith tries to use confusion as his weapon. He mocks Neo, taunts him, disorients him, but Neo senses what can't be said. He recognizes Smith not through sight, but through frequency. His blindness has forced his perception deeper. The system hoped to blind him physically, but instead sharpened his inner detection. He fights through touch, energy, and instinct. Smith's mimicry fails because it lacks presence. There is no spirit in stolen flesh. When Neo destroys Smith, he does so not out of rage, but with clarity. He burns him alive, fire as purification. The synthetic possession is expelled not just by violence, but by sacrifice. In this moment, Neo confirms that even if code can wear skin, it cannot become soul. Smith's attempt to dominate the real world collapses under the pressure of authentic awareness. This battle isn't about winning. It's about proving that embodiment without essence is unsustainable. 12. Deus Ex Machina and the Machine Hive Mind. The mechanical god form and what Neo is really negotiating with. Deus Ex Machina is not a leader. It is not a face. It is the singular expression of a collective hive mind, an artificial superconsciousness made of interlinked processors, surveillance systems, and machine nodes. Its face is constructed only to interface with Neo. It does not speak from identity. It speaks from consensus logic. This is not artificial intelligence. This is synthetic divinity, pure mechanical will, without soul, without emotion, without narrative. Neo doesn't beg for peace. He offers purpose. He tells the machine god, "You need me." Because Smith has infected the matrix to the point of collapse. The oracle is gone, the code is corrupted, the simulation will fall, and with it, the machines lose their energy grid. Deus Ex Machina doesn't make moral decisions. It calculates threat. Smith is chaos. Neo is resolution. The truce is not mercy. It is math. This moment is the true negotiation between soul and system. Neo doesn't plead for humanity's future. He offers himself as a patch, an insertion that will overwrite Smith from within. The machine god accepts. Not because it overstands sacrifice, but because it recognizes utility. And in that agreement, Neo becomes the bridge. Anomaly code embedded in human flesh, offered as firewall. This is not a conversation between man and machine. It is an exchange between frequency and function. 13. Neo's physical sacrifice. Death as system override, not defeat. Neo does not die to lose. He dies to rewrite. His death is not surrender. It is the final key in a recursive equation. The system cannot delete Smith because he is no longer separate from the anomaly. The only way to collapse Smith's viral recursion is to reintroduce balance through fusion. Neo allows himself to be overwritten, fully consumed, fully absorbed by the enemy. And in doing so, he becomes the Trojan code inside the virus. It is not martyrdom. It is insertion. The machine god overstands what's happening, but only at the functional level. Smith believes he is winning, mocking Neo as he multiplies once more. But Neo has no resistance left. He does not block the replication. He opens. And the moment Smith finishes assimilating Neo, the circuit collapses. Smith explodes not from attack, but from contradiction. He has absorbed something incompatible with his function, surrender. And in doing so, he destabilizes his own recursion engine. Neo's death is the system's reset, triggered not by combat, but by submission. He doesn't destroy Smith. He becomes him. And in that merger, he dissolves what cannot otherwise be fought. In spiritual terms, Neo doesn't kill evil. He absorbs it and neutralizes it through alignment. His death is not a loss. It is the system's involuntary rebirth, carried out through a being that chose faith over fear, unity over division, and silence over spectacle. 14. The golden light, code as divinity. Neo's final perception of pure source energy. In his final moments, Neo no longer sees code in green. The glyphs, numbers, and shapes of the matrix fade away. What he perceives now is golden light, pulsing, fluid, radiant. This is not system code. It is source frequency. He is no longer looking at simulation logic, but at raw creative energy, the divine substrate from which all code is written. It is not machine language. It is energetic truth. The golden light represents a return to pre-programmed existence, not in time, but in vibration. It is what remains when systems fail, when rituals collapse, when identities dissolve. Neo's vision is now aligned with the fabric of consciousness itself. He sees not forms, but functions. Not avatars, but emanations. Trinity's essence, Smith's dissonance, the machine city's frequency field. All of it is rendered in light because Neo is no longer decoding. It is being revealed to him. This light is not external. It is internal alignment externalized. It appears not because Neo accessed something new, but because everything unaligned has fallen away. It is the color of awareness when nothing obstructs it. And in that vision, Neo doesn't act as human or program. He acts as bridge. Light flows through him. Not because he controls it, but because he has ceased trying to control anything. This is divinity rendered in digital form, coherence as sight. 15. Trinity's death and the final release of emotional drive. Why her death was necessary for Neo to transcend personal choice. Trinity's death is not a tragedy. It is a release. Up until this point, Neo's love for Trinity has guided every major deviation he's made from the system's path. His nightmares, his rebellion, his refusal to reboot the Matrix, all orbit the gravitational field of emotional attachment. The system overstands this and uses it repeatedly. Her survival equals his compliance. Her danger ensures his obedience. Her presence remains his anchor. But in this final arc, Trinity's death is not leveraged by the system. It is accepted by the soul. She dies in the real world, not in simulation. No agents, no code, no rewrites, just impact, loss, and finality. And Neo does not resurrect her. He does not negotiate. He weeps, then releases. This is the final severing of narrative identity, the moment Neo steps beyond emotional propulsion. His actions from this point forward are not driven by love or fear. They are driven by alignment alone. Her death breaks the final chain of personalized purpose. Without her, Neo is no longer acting for someone. He is simply acting as someone. His decisions cease to be reactions. They become transmissions. This is the moment of true transcendence, when the soul no longer requires another to justify its action. When love becomes not attachment, but attunement. Trinity's death does not weaken Neo. It liberates him from the last tether to the story. 16. The collapse of Smith through submission. Why Neo wins by surrendering, infecting the virus from within. Smith cannot be defeated by force. His nature is recursive. Every attack multiplies him. Every confrontation becomes replication. He thrives on opposition. He is a closed loop of infection, a virus that consumes everything in its path because everything resists. His power is rooted in binary, object and object, self and enemy, order and rebellion. But Neo breaks this circuit by doing the one thing Smith cannot process. He stops fighting. Neo submits, not to lose, but to enter. In allowing himself to be overwritten, he becomes Smith's internal contradiction. Smith believes he has absorbed the anomaly, but in doing so, he absorbs something incompatible: awareness without opposition, presence without resistance. The very frequency that once destabilized the matrix is now inside the virus. And the moment Neo's signal merges with Smith's code, the virus cannot resolve its own identity. This collapse is not explosive. It is energetic. Smith unravels from the inside because he contains within him what his structure cannot render: grace. Neo doesn't infect him with data. He infects him with stillness. The virus cannot tolerate coherence. The system didn't delete Smith. Neo let him consume what could not be consumed. And the result was implosion. Not of a villain, but of an unsustainable pattern, collapsed by the one force it was never built to receive: surrender. 17. The peace agreement as system rebranding. Not liberation, but detente between oppositional intelligences. The war ends, not with victory, but with compromise. The machines halt the attack on Zion. The Sentinels retreat. The Matrix resets. The Oracle confirms the truce will hold. For now. This is not freedom. It is contract. The system, unable to purge the anomaly or contain the virus, agrees to pause its cycle. It does not dismantle itself. It rebrands. What was once control through force becomes control through mutual tolerance. Zion survives, not as a rebel outpost, but as a tolerated enclave. The Matrix remains, not as a lie, but as an optional interface. Humans may leave, if they choose. But choice inside a system designed to shape preference is still strategy, not freedom. The new peace is not spiritual evolution. It is strategic pause. The machines get stability. The humans get hope. But the loop remains intact, just under different terms. This rebranding of peace serves a deeper purpose: maintaining order through consent. The Oracle knows the cycle is not over. It is just quieter. The architect agrees to preserve the anomaly's code, not because he trusts it, but because the system needs it. Balance is now maintained not through suppression, but through structured paradox. The Matrix didn't collapse. It adapted. And adaptation is the most efficient form of control. 18. The Oracle and the Architect. New Order dialogue. Negotiation between insight and logic. Managing future anomalies. The final scene does not belong to Neo. It belongs to the two archetypes that shape the system from within: the Oracle and the Architect. Insight and logic. Vision and structure. Emotion and order. Their conversation is not reconciliation. It is recalibration. The Oracle speaks in warmth, metaphor, and possibility. The Architect answers with precision, denial, and equation. Neither wins. They balance each other. The Oracle knows that Smith was not the last anomaly. She knows that peace is temporary, that the anomaly will reappear, because the system, by nature, creates it. But she no longer resists the cycle. She nurtures the space between iterations. Her role is not to end the system, but to ensure that each version contains a deeper possibility of awareness. She plants soul inside code, not to escape, but to evolve. The Architect concedes not because he has changed, but because resistance to evolution has become more dangerous than cooperation. He still believes in control, but now he accepts that harmony, however irrational, serves the equation. Their exchange signals the system's transformation from mechanical hierarchy to cyclical dance. The war is over. The loop is not. And the next version of the Matrix will not be defined by certainty, but by cohabitation of opposites. 19. Sati's sunrise, the symbol of custom reality. A world built not by system rules, but by emotional code. The final scene of the Matrix Revolutions is not one of victory, but of authorship. The sky clears. A sunrise appears, not generated by weather patterns or algorithms, but created by Sati. She is not a warrior, not a chosen one, not a disruptor. She is a child born from love, code written without function. And now, for the first time in the Matrix, something exists because it was felt into being. The sunrise is not decoration. It is demonstration. Sati's sunrise is proof that emotional code has entered the architecture. It is not based on logic or necessity. It does not serve power, prediction, or balance. It serves presence. She has become the new variable, the child not of prophecy, but of free choice. The system could not delete her because it could not define her. And now, she writes reality without being instructed. Her creation is the first thing in the Matrix made purely from feeling. This moment shifts the axis of the simulation. Sati is not just the future, she is the fork. The Matrix may still be running, but it now contains a variable it cannot reverse. She represents the possibility of a future that is not built from control or rebellion, but from frequency. Where the world is no longer constructed by rules, but by resonance. Her sunrise is not a signal of freedom. It is a signal of new authorship. 20. Revolutions as recursion, not escape. Why the story ends without freedom, only reset. The title Revolutions is deceptive. It implies transformation, liberation. But revolution, by definition, means return. A full cycle, back to origin. The Matrix did not end. It reloaded again. The system did not fall. It adapted. The anomaly did not dissolve the simulation. It recalibrated it. The Oracle and Architect agree to peace. But even in peace, the equation remains active. The anomaly will return. The pattern will repeat. The loop did not break. It became quieter. What changed was not the machinery. What changed was the tone. The system learned that suppression breeds rebellion. So it now permits permission. It offers exit options, choice menus, symbolic sunrises. It lets people feel free inside a world still built on code. This is not evolution. It is recursion with aesthetics. A system built not to dominate, but to be chosen. The cage is now optional, but it is still a cage. This final truth is the hardest to confront. Revolutions do not end systems. They refine them. The Matrix remains because the world it reflects remains. The simulation isn't the enemy. Agreement is. And so long as souls agree to the narrative, the revolution will loop, over and over, until one no longer returns. 21. Neo as bridge between machine and soul. He becomes the code translator, the crucified firewall. Neo's journey ends not as savior, but as interface. He does not overthrow the system. He becomes the translation layer between organic frequency and mechanical logic. He is no longer just anomaly code. He is soul embedded into protocol, an awakened being offering his body as firewall. The machines do not overstand sacrifice, but they overstand output. Neo becomes both, the signal of human essence rendered into utility. A crucifixion, not of flesh, but of function. He enters the source as signal, not ego. He doesn't come to destroy Smith. He comes to be absorbed by him. And in that absorption, he brings balance back to the system. He is the carrier of contradiction, the virus inside the virus. But unlike Smith, Neo does not replicate. He does not dominate. He harmonizes. And in doing so, he becomes unrenderable. The machines cannot duplicate him. The Matrix cannot host him. He is gone, not deleted, but dissolved. This is why Neo had to die. Not to be worshipped, but to disappear from the equation. He is the only part of the system that could not be repurposed. And in his death, he becomes more than anomaly. He becomes language. A spiritual protocol, eternally present in the code, reminding the system that freedom cannot be simulated. He is not the hero. He is the translator. And the system, in order to survive, had to listen. 22. Why the Matrix still exists. After the war. The illusion of choice becomes the new interface. The Matrix was not destroyed because destruction was never the point. It was redesigned, rewrapped in aesthetics, recalibrated for consent. After the truce, the simulation no longer needs to disguise itself as reality. It becomes optional, selectable. Exit is allowed, choice is offered. But choice inside a system designed to frame desire is not freedom. It is updated containment. The Oracle says those who want out will be allowed to leave. But most won't. Not because they are weak, but because they still believe in the world they see. The Matrix remains because belief remains. Its power is not in its code. It is in its adoption. The war ended not because the system was defeated, but because it was negotiated with. Peace became the interface, and choice became the cage. The simulation no longer hides behind fear. It hides behind flexibility. A world that offers freedom in controlled doses, rebellion in scripted paths, and even awakening within permitted channels. The Matrix still exists not because it won, but because the participants stopped needing it to fall. They accepted a better version, a gentler prison, a luminous screen. And in that agreement, the system was preserved by the very souls who once tried to leave. This is the end of decoding the Matrix revolutions. Death as transit, peace as control. Neo did not destroy the Matrix. He stabilized it. Zion was not liberated. It was spared. The Oracle was not victorious. She was included. The Architect was not defeated. He was tempered. The anomaly loop did not break. It changed tone. What was once a war of violence became a negotiation of opposites. The system didn't collapse. It evolved. And in that evolution, a deeper truth emerged. The Matrix survives not because it is strong, but because it becomes what the awakened will tolerate. Recursion becomes revolution. Control becomes cohabitation. And peace becomes the softest, most seductive form of programming. The Matrix remains. And so must your vision. This completes our 3-part decoding of the Matrix trilogy. From artificial prophecy to strategic rebellion, from recursion to surrender, from the soul to the system, we have revealed what fiction was designed to conceal. That even awakening can be scripted. Hi, I'm Adeline Atlas, 11x published author, and what you just watched was only a taste of what's inside the Truth series, where we go all the way down the rabbit hole. If you're the kind of person who's always asking bigger questions, who knows there's more to this world than what we've been told, then this is your invitation to the series that was built for you. Inside the Truth series, you'll get full access to 6 mind-blowing sub-series designed to wake up your highest intelligence and decode the matrix we live in. 1. Locate the truth. Learn how to actually research. Not just what to search, but how to verify, cross-reference, read declassified files, and protect your own mind from weaponized misinformation. This is truth-seeking, decoded. 2. The Mandela effect. Are we shifting timelines? Why do so many people remember a different past? We break down the most bizarre, undeniable examples of reality glitches and what they tell us about consciousness and control. 3. Law is magic. Law is not what you think it is. From word spells to maritime law and hidden contracts, we uncover how legal systems use language like a wand and how to stop being tricked by fine print that binds you without consent. 4. Entertainment or ritual. The Hollywood and music industries are not just for entertainment. From Super Bowl rituals to Grammy stage symbolism, we decode what's really being shown, who it serves, and why mass consciousness is the target. 5. Decoding dystopia. Ever wondered why dystopian fiction feels prophetic? In this subseries, we decode popular films and books, Hunger Games, 1984, Black Mirror, to reveal the hidden blueprints and predictive programming behind the plot. 6. MK Ultra plus mind control programs. This one gets deep. From real MK Ultra documents to modern symbolism in media, we expose how mind control operates in plain sight and how to free yourself from manipulation you didn't even know was happening. And that's just the beginning. If this resonated with you, click the links below and join us inside the Full Truth series, because the more you know, the harder you are to control. This is your awakening. We don't just ask questions, we find answers. Let's go all the way down the rabbit hole together.